I am working with a very seasoned team who has a strong tendency to want to relive the past and prior leadership experiences. This tendency seems to promote fear and lack of decision making. What advice do you have for me to help my team move on and more actively participate in the new paradigm?
Your question is not an unusual one. I work with executive teams especially who have members who have been in the organization quite a long time, and they didn't love the past, and ironically, they live in the past and carry it with them. So what is really, I think, a little insane is that you bring yourself back and remember and carry with you the very thing that you didn't like and you want to break free of. So the past is gone, you're free, except that you keep carrying things with you. And so as I work with teams that are doing that, the first thing I try and do is just normalize and get things present for today, what their experience is. So some teams tell me, Sai, you don't understand, we inherited a mess. We come to here every day and the past leaders created such a mess. And what I do is I just take these things they've connected together and break them apart. You're an executive team. You come here every day to solve problems. That's what every executive team does throughout the world, every single day. It is normal. It is why we pay you. It is just our reality. So, to break free from our suffering, let's stop connecting our issues today with anything from the past. Likewise, let's stop connecting our behavior of today with anything from the past, because what many teams do is they use as an excuse today for why they aren't doing something that happened to them way in the past. It's one of the ways that people practice what I call learned helplessness. I'll say, why don't you speak up in a meeting today? And they'll go, oh my gosh, well, I spoke up once 10 years ago and no one listened. How convenient for your ego to keep track, keep a grudge, and use that as a way to justify staying safe. So how are you going to work with this? Watch your language. When people go into the past, re-anchor them. Today, what is our challenge at hand? Today, given what we have and what we know, what would be our best move forward? Given our current reality, what can you bring to the table to move us forward? And when people try and emotionally blackmail you and they go, yeah, but we tried that in 1968 and it didn't happen or it didn't work, I go, oh my gosh, I love that you were here then. You have a special responsibility to use the lessons learned then to move forward differently and to help us break free from that as well. Anything that comes up about the past, I want you to take that energy and just go, today, we're being called to create greatness. What would great look like? What do we know for sure? What could we do next that would add value? The same questions I teach you are a great way for disconnecting from the past. One of my favorite stories came from the Buddhist tradition, and it was about two monks that were traveling by foot. One monk was quite a bit older, and the second monk was newer into the practice. One of the things that monks try to avoid is touching people of the opposite sex. So imagine the youngest monk's surprise when they came to a really muddy road to cross, and there was an elderly woman who was struggling to cross it, and the older monk just went up and picked her up and joyfully carried her across and set her down, and they walked on. About 4 hours later, the youngest monk, who was so concerned about the older monk breaking his vows, finally spoke up, and he said, oh my gosh, I can't believe that you touched a woman. You picked up a woman and carried her. And the older monk said, yep, I did. And I carried that woman for maybe 2 minutes. It appears that you've carried her now in your mind for 4 hours. Whose crime is bigger? And what I would have a frank talking to folks is, I would say, folks, what happened, happened. I wasn't here. I don't know if it was right, wrong, horrid, not horrid. Here's what I ask of you. It may have limited you then, but if you're letting it limit you today, This is all about you and your power. You're limiting yourself far more than any situation that happened in the past. And I would call people to greatness, and I would say we have some choices to make. And then I might ask them, can we agree that when any of us start to use the past as our reasons and excuses of why we can't move boldly into the future, are we okay with helping each other out of that and just cutting the cords, getting into the present moment, and figuring out what we can do next that would add value, and then figure out as a team how you can make that happen. Ultimately, if someone isn't able to move from the past into the future and really cut those cords, you need to start questioning their value to the organization, because our value is, can I perform today unencumbered by my history? And am I ready for what's next? Will I be performing far into the future? And if I'm not able to let go of the baggage of the past, I'm not going to be ready for what's next. And then lastly, what's my drama quotient? If I can't deliver today, be prepared for what's next, and do it in low drama ways, I eventually get too expensive to continue to employ. So it's time to let go of the past. Here's what I know for sure. Every one of us has a past. Every solution today is next year's problem. Every one of us inherits problems. Every one of us creates problems. Welcome to the human race. Stop letting reality and humanness affect your joy today or your results today. Those two things are up to you.